Well, that question remains to be seen. There are still negative sentiments towards the old Naira notes, but in the coming days, we'll see if more Nigerians will accept those old Naira notes. But what does all of this mean for the Nigerian economy, and exactly what impact is it having on the Naira? What trajectory does it give to the value of the Naira? We'll have that conversation and more with the partner and head regulatory services with Anderson. Mr. Michael Ango joins us virtually from Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Ango. Thank you for your time this morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great, and I hope you are too. So tell us how you see this affecting the value of the Naira. Yesterday or 2 days ago, we did see that the Naira gained just about 1%, and some people have said that isn't much. That's not anything to applaud, and we don't know how permanent that is, if it's just a transitory impact. But all of this issue of there's the redesign Naira, there's cash crunch, and now we're going back to the ruling of the Supreme Court. What is it doing to the Naira?
It's interesting that we're even talking about the value of the Naira in relation to the redesign policy. And I think this just shows that while the policy might have been, done with very good intentions, I think the implementation has left a lot to be desired. And maybe that is why we're even having a conversation about, the impact of a Naira redesign on the value of the Naira. Ordinarily, changing your currency design, I think by the CBN Act or so, this should be done every 5 years or thereabouts. And in making justification for the change or for the redesign, the CBN governor did make the point, and I think quite rightly, that we hadn't done the Naira redesign in over a decade or thereabout. So in terms of, the motive, I think there was nothing absolutely wrong with it. Although, of course, there were also some monetary policy considerations, particularly with respect to, amount of money in circulation. I think in October, the CBN governor said to us that there was about 2.3 trillion in circulation, of which 2.7 was outside the banking system and only 500 billion was within the banking system. So I think the thinking then was that there was too much money in terms of physical cash outside the system. And what that then means was that, it had a, effect on inflation. But in terms of, the value of the Naira, I would say, I'm not an economist, even though I do understand a bit of economics. But I will say that if, after the Naira redesign, this currency had been made available and people had it within the means that they needed to transact with it, I don't see how, it should affect the value of the Naira. But what happened was that, allied to the Naira redesign, I think the CBN governor then said, look, we wanted to boost our cashless policy, wanted to boost the whole issue of financial inclusion and all of that. And so the thinking was then to push people to electronic channels, to non-cash transactions, use of POS, and basically to reduce cash in the economy. And I think that is where the real issue and the problem came. So honestly, I would say yes, because people previously 2-3 weeks ago, people were buying Naira. You would say, I wanted to withdraw 10,000 Naira from the POS, and you tell you needed to pay 500, 1,000, 2,000. So in that regard, it would certainly affect the value of the Naira in your pocket. It then meant that if I was withdrawing 10,000 Naira and paying 2,000 to withdraw 10,000, it means that the actual value that I'm getting back is 8,000 Naira. But it is good that the CBN has said it would, uphold the Supreme Court ruling. And as of yesterday, we hear that, the old 1,500 Naira notes are back in circulation. So let's wait and see what happens. Probably by weekend and next week, we'll have a clearer picture of the impacts on the economy and, of course, as you say, the value of the Naira.
And what's this doing to the exports, investors' sentiment? We do have the elections, so that already creates one level of uncertainty. And then when you combine that with issues like this, which we hope, is going to be stabilized after this, since we saw there in our report that even the ATMs have started giving out the old Naira, so we do hope there will be a bit of stability. But what does it do to our exports and our objective of diversifying the economy, attracting foreign direct investments and investors and all?
So again, I go back to my initial point as to implementation. And that's why I said you might have a very excellent policy, you might intend it for the good of the economy, you might intend it for the good of citizens, but if you don't implement it in a manner in which it then achieves the desired results, then it may become counterproductive. And honestly, in terms of, for example, let me go to agric. So people buy raw produce, crops from the hinterlands, and then probably take it, to the ports or wherever they want to ship it out, or to the middlemen. This has significantly impacted the ability for traders to buy and sell agri-produce. I can speak to that because I come from a part of the country where that is, our mainstay. So people in the hinterlands, they're not going to sell to you and then wait for a transfer or something. They believe, in cash. They do cash transactions. So, of course, certainly that would have impacted their ability to sell their grains, to sell their produce. Of course, I don't think that the Naira redesign would have impacted, other sectors in terms of, for example, invisible exports and all of that. But there is no way you're going to shrink, significantly. So we hear all sorts of figures. I think they said they printed 400 billion. I can't verify that, but I think, so if you are mopping up, say, 2 trillion out of the economy and you're putting back in only 400 billion, it then means that you are certainly saying to a lot of people who are used to cash transactions, who transact daily, even in the markets, people who buy groceries, people who buy, foodstuffs and all of that, you're saying to them, move to electronic channels, move to, electronic banking, POS and all of that. It is going to be difficult. And I don't question the need for ultimately, seeing that Nigeria moves to a cashless, as you were, economy. What I'm simply saying is that we have to do this thing in a very graduated and strategic manner. So again, like I said, I'm not an economist, so I'm not the best person to tell you how it's going to impact exports and all of that, but I would say that it will likely have an impact. I've heard you mention elections, and that's an interesting one I'd like to pick up. Why are we fixated on elections and cash? Again, it goes back, I think, to the problem that we have in Nigeria with viewing our elections as an economic event. And I really will say that for me, if the whole issue around this thing is tied to elections, then I don't subscribe to that view. Why do people need money for elections? Yes, of course, people need money to transport themselves to polling units and all of that. Politicians will tell you they need to mobilize their voters and all of that. But I think that we should not be fixated on elections and cash. Elections are a separate event from whatever cash we have in our economy. I know that has been the whole discourse, but I'm not going to get myself involved in discussing the impact of cash on elections. I do not think that cash should have an impact on elections. I may be naive, but that's my view.
Well, at least you're expressing yourself there. But let's look at the other side of the election, which is the expectation, from the new administration, or in the case of a state like Lagos, state continuation, if, the people would bring in Governor Sanwo-Olu again, the continuation of an administration. We have seen the numbers. We know our inflation numbers. We know our debt data. we know the percentage of increase we've seen in price of basic commodities, food prices. We see the queues, even though they're disappearing, but they're still there at the filling station. So it's obvious that there's a lot of work to be done. And we've had promises from a lot of candidates, even from the president-elect. We've had the issue of subsidy and all of that. But how scary or how demanding is this assignment before the new administration or the next administration as we head towards, the governorship election?
So the first thing to say is that the president-elect is aware. He knows the challenges that the Nigerian economy is facing. He's a Nigerian. He lives here in Nigeria. He campaigned to Nigerians. He prepared a manifesto and he said, that I can fix the problems. I think severally he has said that he understands the problems and he can fix it. So I think we should give him a chance. What I will say is that the issues are out there. He said pointedly that he's going to withdraw subsidies. So how soon he can do that and how he'll be able to manage, or how the administration, let's not personalize it, how the administration will be able to manage the fallout from that is going to be one of the major tests. Of course, the fact that like you rightly said, inflation has spiked recently. We still have fuel queues and all of that. These are issues that would need quick solutions. Whether they have quick solutions, I wouldn't know. But I think that we should watch and see. What I'll say is that we expect to see a very strong economic team. And I think the first thing that will give us an indication as to how the new administration will proceed is in terms of the makeup or composition of the transition committee. So people are really watching and hoping to see that, if the transition committee inspires confidence, then I think Nigerians will begin to respond also in like. So once we see the transition committee, we have a sense of how they're going to operate. We have the sense of the kind of people they wish to bring into government and to work with. I think that confidence will come back into the economy. Investors may come back. Nigerians will also give the government a chance. I will say this, Nigeria has faced significant challenges, whether in the 90s, in the 80s, 2000s. So we are used to those challenges. What is important is how we face them up, and of course, how the government is able to then ensure that it gets the confidence of the citizenry and allows and enables the citizenry buy into their vision. I think that will be, for me, the most important thing that the president-elect and his administration will be able to achieve, say, in the first, 90 days or thereabout. If they are able to get Nigerians to believe that they have a plan, then I think they will see that Nigerians will give them a chance.
Okay, the manufacturers have said you should have a first 100 days list to do. But you talked about the transition committee. We've also heard about the need for an economic team, to start off with as a way to win the confidence of Nigerians. But a lot of Nigerians would say we have seen committees with people who we're supposed to be impressed with. We've even heard plans, that are impressive, but it seems not to really translate into, the implementation seems to be where we have a gap. At the end of the day, do you see anything the president-elect can do? As you've noted, I mean, when we look at the election results, you have a whole lot of Nigerians who would have wanted, otherwise. So he does have a duty to win a lot of Nigerians over in order to make Nigeria work. Is there anything you think you can do, apart from the composition of the committee, because, I mean, that can win the confidence of Nigerians?
Well, let me say that you recall at the Chatham House, one of the things that the president-elect did at that time, and he termed it teamship. When he was asked questions, he brought in other people to answer the questions. And although some people said, oh, no, we didn't like it, but it was his own way of saying to Nigerians that, look, this isn't going to be a one-man show. I'm going to run this government with people. I'm going to bring in capable hands. So I'd say give him a chance. I'm a football man. In football, you sack coaches, you bring in new coaches. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You must allow the coach to come in, to set up his own team, to make his team player selection. And then sometimes the results will speak to it, and you'll know whether, you've made the right choice in the coach that you've appointed. Likewise in governance and in politics. Whatever it is, even if he won with a vote, he's still the president-elect. So Nigerians must give him a chance to gain the confidence of Nigerians. Like I said, the team is very important. There are people that once they are announced in the team, people will naturally respond. I've heard you say that, in times past, people who we would have thought will do well have come into government. That doesn't mean we should stop appointing people into government. We will keep appointing until we get it right. So I would say strongly, if I were to have an opportunity to advise this president-elect, I would say, sir, what you need to do is have a very good team, have a strong team, bring in diversity into the government, let people understand that no matter what the color of the victory that you have, that you are here to work for all Nigerians. I think if he's able to do that, and you and I, we're practical people. If you go to the market tomorrow and the price of foodstuffs have dropped, if you go and buy your fuel, you spend 1 minute in the fuel station, you will naturally respond positively. So I think that the challenge is really for him to ensure that he does hit the ground running, as he has said also he will. And then let's give him a chance. He's the president-elect, so we must allow him the chance to prove his promises to Nigerians. All
right, Mr. Ango, Michael Ango, partner and head, regulatory services with Anderson. I hope Nigerians have heard you and they will give the president-elect a chance. Have a great day. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
All right. Okay, so there you go. Mr. Ango is asking you, Nigerians, to give the president-elect a chance, even if you did not vote for him. Let's see what he can do. That's what Mr. Ango is saying. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we're staying on the matter. I mean, election is on Saturday, so we still have the politicians in our full view. We'll continue after this break here on Business Morning on Channels Television.